After releasing the rule-bending Wave Rebellion Pro last year, Mizuno is now following up with an even more audacious update. It's more aggressive, it's even taller, and it's got an updated peba-infused foam. This is the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. It's time to take it for a ride. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi. I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2. But before I do, I want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Mizuno sent to me for the purpose of review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, no one's paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2. I'm gonna start with the specs. And this is a shoe where the specs almost don't make any sense to me, both either on paper or on foot. But Mizuno is telling us that this is a 38mm stack height shoe with a mere 2mm of drop, meaning we've got 36mm of stack height in the forefoot. Now, in terms of what this midsole is made out of, they're using Mizuno Energy Light Plus, which is a foam that is infused with Peba Renew, R-N-E-W, and what that is it's a plant-based Peba. Moving to the outsole, we have a beautiful red outsole pattern, which they're calling their G3 outsole. And while we're down here, we can see two things. We can see that they've updated the cutout that's in the center of the shoe with the kind of like release valve, if you will, being at the heel of the foot, whereas last year that kind of cutout was towards the medial side of the arch. So there's a little bit of a difference there. And also on the midsole, we can see a really good look at the wave plate that's in this shoe. And something that I will note is that is not a carbon fiber plate, but it is a carbon infused wave plate. On the upper, we have a very minimal upper with engineered mesh. The tongue is very thin. There's not a lot of overlays or structural elements within the shoe, and the heel itself is very floppy with just a couple of bumper pads in the back to make sure that it fits a wider variety of heels. But overall, it's very lightweight and extremely minimal. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a measured weight on my scale with my US men's size 9 of 7.5 ounces or 213 grams. All right, with those paper specs out of the way, it's time to talk about what it was like to actually run in this shoe. And in a year where every shoe seems to be getting a little bit more stable, a little bit more refined, and in my opinion, a little bit more boring, this shoe definitely bucks the trend. The Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2 is everything that the predecessor was, but more. I feel like the Energy Light Plus foam is much softer, which is definitely appreciated because I felt like the foam last year was a bit too firm, and it took a really long time for me to really get into a groove with the shoe because it was very firm out of the box. It needed a lot of miles before I felt like I was at peak performance in terms of what the shoe was intended to offer. And that's really something that I shouldn't be seeing when it comes to racing product. It should be good right out of the box. And I could say that the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 is really good right out of the box. But it is a very tall shoe, and that normally isn't something that bothers me, but this shoe kind of bothered me. A lot of the roads that I run on are cambered. In other words, they're kind of slanted to help with water drainage. And if it was a very cambered road, my ankles were instantly upset about it. I just felt like the slight slant to the road made the running experience uncomfortable. I found myself, when possible, running in the middle of the road. And when I did run with this shoe at marathon effort, I felt like the heel drop was very intense. And on paper, Mizuno is telling us that this is a 2mm drop shoe, but I didn't look at that number until after I had run in the shoe. And as I was running in the shoe, I was trying to kind of guess what the heel drop was. And in my mind, I was thinking that this was an 8mm heel drop shoe. 10, maybe even 12mm wouldn't have surprised me, because it just feels like I'm really tilted up forward in this shoe. And maybe that's just the geometry of the way that the shoe is designed, with its kind of double bevels. There's a heel bevel and an aggressive toe spring or bevel at the front of the shoe as well. But it just felt like I was leaning forward in the shoe quite aggressively, which is something that I don't always love when it comes to my marathon racing product. I generally like heel drops that are a little bit lower when we're talking about a shoe that has a rigid element like a plate in it, and that has a very compliant foam, a foam that squishes a lot and then springs back. I feel like lower heel drops, at least for me, tend to work a lot better. But I think all of this kind of makes sense though, if you understand that the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 was designed specifically with midfoot strikers in mind. And that's not exactly what I am. I'm more of a midfoot to forefoot striker. So I feel like I'm not exactly hitting the shoe exactly where it's supposed to be. And so I think that's what makes it feel like a much different heel drop than what's stated on paper. But all those critiques being said, I had a really fun time running in this shoe. I like the way that the foam is compressing, rolling, and then decompressing as I'm running at marathon efforts in this shoe. And because of the fact that it's more of a midfoot design shoe, and I think you're intended to run with it further back here, it did two kind of very interesting things. One is that it kind of felt like the toe spring of this shoe, or at least like the front bevel of it, started almost at the front of my heel. So it starts really far back and it almost kind of pushes some pressure into the lower portion of my arch, which I thought might be a problem, but on a very long run, it ended up not being a problem at all. But it does take a little bit of getting used to for me in terms of my foot strike and where my foot normally hits the ground when I'm running at marathon race efforts. But the other thing that I noticed with this shoe, because of like kind of the way that the shoe is designed and the person for whom this shoe is designed for, I found that when I'm running uphill a little bit, I felt like this shoe was really great at kind of neutralizing small to medium sized hills. It just charges up hills without any extra effort, it seems. And I feel like that boost, that surprise that I'm feeling when I'm running slightly uphill, it is what I'm supposed to be feeling when I'm running in the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. So I feel like those of you who are midfoot strikers and even heel strikers are really gonna like the way that this geometry is set up, because it just kind of rolls you through in a really snappy way that I feel like is very efficient if it lines up well with your gait. But I will say, for me as a forefoot striker, going down the hill on the other ends of those uphills was a little bit scary and a little bit clunky, because then I felt like I was definitely hitting the shoe in the wrong spot, and I felt like there was a little bit of kind of a dissonance there in terms of what the shoe wanted me to do and what I felt like I needed to be doing as I was running downhill. And for me, the dissonance with the shoe kind of increased the faster I went. So I did a very long run in the shoe, doing a lot of those miles at marathon effort or right around marathon effort. And then I did another run where I had a lot of much faster speeds, from like half marathon down to about 10K pace in terms of efforts. And I felt like there, when I really want to be on my toes, I felt like I was only getting the very, very front end of the shoe. And I felt like this front end of the shoe is probably where the toe spring is most aggressive. So I'm getting the least amount of foam. And I feel like it's a little bit firm and also at the same time not responsive. So I'm not feeling like I'm getting a nice bounce or return from the shoe way at the front end of it all the way up at the toe. So for me, it felt like I was carrying a lot of the weight of the shoe, a lot of the size of the shoe, without getting any speed benefit from it when I wanted to go much faster than marathon pace. But the thing is, this shoe is designed as a marathon shoe, and I think ideally this is going to be a shoe that you midfoot and midfoot/heel strikers are really going to want to keep an eye out for. All the problems that I had with this shoe, kind of the slight instability on cambered roads and the slight awkward feeling of where the camber of the shoe is starting, I feel like a lot of that kind of goes away and makes much more sense for you if you're hitting the shoe as it's intended. Now let's get to the end of the video where we talk about some pairing options and some alternatives in the buying guide. First, let's talk about some pairing options if you are a midfoot / heel striker and you are super interested in what the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 has to offer. I think there's two shoes that you're gonna need. You're gonna need kind of like a daily trainer and then something for recovery run days or for just some easy long runs. And for the daily trainer, I haven't reviewed this one yet, but to give you a little preview, I think the Wave Rebellion Flash 2 is going to be really fun. There's a top layer of Energy Light Plus and the bottom layer is EVA, so it's gonna be able to handle a lot more miles. And for me, this shoe was enjoyable at easy paces because at easy paces, I'm landing a little bit more midfoot and I was really starting to understand what the double bevels of this shoe were really all about. And then for those easier runs, if you want something a little bit more cushioned, or if you're just gonna be on feet for a long time for a long, slow distance kind of run, I think a shoe that you should look at is the New Balance SE Elite version 2. I feel like the SE Elite version 1 probably lines up and pairs up a little bit better because of the way that the carbon fiber plate was designed in that shoe, but I feel like the 2 is going to be a lot easier for more of you guys to pick up. It's got a racing foam in here and it's got a really tall stack height and a carbon fiber plate. So on paper, it's kind of similar to what's going on in the Wave Rebellion Pro 2, but if you take a look underneath, each of these shoes has a really long channel in the middle to help guide the foot, and I feel like this shoe really responds well for people who are a little bit more in the midfoot to the heel in terms of their foot strike. And the way that this plate is designed, it kind of like encourages you to land further back and then it bounces you forward as you roll through the foot strike. A lot of the same things are going in the Wave Rebellion Flash 2 and the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. And so I think all three of these shoes are going to line up really well together. Now let's talk about the buying guide and some alternatives. The Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2 is out now and you can get it for $250, and that is pretty much the standard price for your race day shoes. And I feel like if this is a shoe that speaks to you, that's going to be a pretty good price. But let's see what the rest of the market has to offer. I feel like there's not a lot that's very similar to the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. It's very unique. And so one shoe that I'm gonna recommend is the Wave Rebellion Pro version 1. This shoe is still available for sale, and because it's the old version now, it's available for $180. But if you are a midfoot, heel foot striker and you like shoes that are a little bit more firm and you don't like the squishy direction that a lot of shoes are going, this is going to be the better option for you because this earlier version of the Energy Light is a little bit more firmer and more responsive. I also feel like that's a better shoe for faster running as well. So if you're looking for kind of like a half marathon 10K racer, that's another option to look at too. The other shoe that I'll have you look at is another unusual shoe, but this one I have been really enjoying, and that's the Hoka Cielo X1. It's also got a very large channel down the middle of the shoe with an unusual cutout. This one's on the lateral side versus the cutout that's on the back of the Wave Rebellion Pro version 2. But both of these shoes are very tall and have updated foams and rigid elements to help you roll through your foot strike and get through those longer runs and races as fast as possible. The Cielo X1 comes in at $275, so a little bit more than the $250 of the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. But those are my thoughts on the latest update from Mizuno. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?